So I made a video a year ago in January 2025 where I ranked every single Death album. And I watched that video again, and I feel like I have been uncultured at some points of it, and I feel like I could go more in depth into what I exactly mean by every single ranking and talk a little bit more about the albums, having gained listening experience and also a little bit of live experience through Left to Die. Left to Die is a cover band that plays death songs from Leprosy and Scream Bloody Gore with two ex-Death members, Terry Butler, who was in the Leprosy lineup but was not on any recorded album during the Leprosy lineup, aka he was not the one playing bass on Leprosy, it was Chuck, but he was credited with playing bass on Leprosy despite him not playing the bass because he was a touring member. And also Spiritual Healing, where he actually played the bass. And the other guy who's in the band is the original Death guitarist when Death was still called Mantis, and it was a three-piece with Cam Lee, which went on to form Massacre, and that is Rick Ross, which played some of the more Slayer-esque leads on Leprosy. So the ones that you hear with die bombs and shit like that, that is Rick. Chuck's style was more classical and complex than Rick's, but Rick's was that classic death metal, thrash Slayer-inspired soloing style. So, having said this, let's begin the ranking. First album ranks the lowest for me, because it musically is the most uninteresting one to me. It is absolutely classic in its own right, and it's a great, solid-ass album, easily. Death have no bad album, Death have no bad song. Every single song that this band has made has been fucking killer. But this is just the least interesting album to me. Reason being, it's the most primitive one in sound, and it's old school death metal. The most old school death metal you can get, you know, besides like Seven Churches by Possessed and shit like that. This is one of the first fucking death metal records to ever exist. And a lot of that is due to the production by Scott Burns at Moore Sound Studios in Tampa, Florida, which pretty much created the fucking sound of death metal. I have to make a little correction on my end. It was not Scott Burns who produced Scream Bloody Gore. It was actually Randy Burns. Now, the reason why I thought it was Scott Burns is because Scott and Randy have the same last name, and Scott Burns is the famed death metal producer. Randy Burns is pretty overlooked because he mainly produced thrash metal albums, but don't get me wrong, he produced some great thrash. Megadeth's Peace Sells But Who's Buying, Dark Angel's Darkness Descends, Creator's Coma of Souls and Extreme Aggression. He's definitely produced a lot of classic thrash metal albums. But he is also someone who's produced two of the most important early death metal releases which helped shape the genre, and that is Seven Churches and Scream Bloody Gore. Both of these albums are produced or co-produced by Randy Burns. Scream Bloody Gore was produced by Randy Burns and Chuck, so they made a collaborative effort. Scott Burns is super prolific in the death metal scene, and he mainly has death metal bands under his belt, while Randy Burns was mainly a thrash guy. Scott has definitely produced a bunch of fucking bands. Cannibal Corpse, Deicide, Death Starting From Leprosy, Sepultura, Obituary, Atheist, Terrorizer, Cancer, Napalm, Death, Demohammer, Master, Exhorter, Malevolent Creation, Pestilence, Gorguts, Suffocation, Disincarnate, Solstice, Cynic. Just a bunch of good shit. Even some bad shit like 6 Feet Fucking Under. Fuck that band. The production is quite a big element of what made this album be what it fucking is and shape death metal into what it became. An equally important album is Leprosy. I think this album is a lot better. The songwriting is a lot more interesting and it's a lot more re-listenable. There's a lot of amazing songs on this album, and what I forgot to mention was that Scream Bloody Gore is an album that I've seen live played in its entirety by the band Left to Die, because they were on their Scream Bloody More Europe tour. And they played 3 songs from Leprosy and the whole Scream Bloody Gore album, as well as one song from Mantis called Witches of Hell. Some of the songs that are really fucking good on Leprosy are some of the longest ones. You know, Leprosy, you also got some quick-ass bangers like Born Dead, you got Choke on It, Left to Die, of course. Pull the Plug is the most absolute classic in this lineup of songs by far. It's the most listened to and is the most mentioned. What can I say? Killer fucking album, and I barely touched on the songs from Scream Bloody Gore, but they're equally amazing too. My favorite one might be Evil Dead due to the just really fucking nice guitar intro, and as a matter of fact, Evil Dead was the first song that was written by the three-piece when it was called Mantis, when Chuck was not the one on vocals. It was Cam Lee on drums and vocals, Rick Ross on guitar, and Chuck on guitar too. They didn't have a bassist at the time. And the first song they wrote was Evil Dead. They even demoed it with Mantis with Cam Lee on vocals, which is really fucking badass. Then we got their third album, Spiritual Healing. Now this is the least liked Death album from what I've seen. People don't enjoy this one as much as the other albums from their collection, and I don't really know why, to be fair. Actually, I do know why. It might be the vocal distortion. Not the vocals themselves. The vocals themselves live sound phenomenal. The issue is the production of the vocals. It's kind of weird. It's kind of off-putting, and that's why this album is a bit of a harder listen for some people. But come on, it's James fucking Murphy. James fucking Murphy is one of the most prolific death metal guitarists. Like, imagine fucking releasing both Spiritual Healing and Cause of Death by Obituary in the same year, like being on both albums playing lead guitar on these two absolute classics for old school death metal. It's an insane ass fucking resume James Murphy has. He also has some work with Testament. He also has Disincarnate. He has a lot of shit under his belt, and this album is one of the defining things he's made. The way that the Spiritual Healing lineup actually disbanded is pretty fucking interesting. They were supposed to tour with Creator in Europe, and Chuck Schuldiner pulled out of that tour. And that's why what came of it was the Fuck Chuck tour, where the band straight up said, fuck you, Chuck. They went to tour, and they grabbed their fucking guitar tech, who did not know how to do metal vocals, and just plopped him right on the fucking set. They didn't have a secondary guitarist. All they had was the three people who were not Chuck in the band, and the fucking guitar tech who did not know how to sing. The audience was pretty pissed, and there's quite a couple obscure YouTube videos featuring the actual concerts because people filmed this shit. And you can clearly see the crowd reactions being not the best. Then we move on to Human. Now, in the past I said that I liked Spiritual Healing more than Human, and this is a very tight debate. I'm not quite sure where I still stand on this, but I think I'm just gonna put it above Spiritual Healing, as it genuinely is a notch above musically. I now happen to be listening to Human a lot more than Spiritual Healing tracks, and it's for a very, very easy reason. The songwriting is just better, and it's a huge addition to have Paul Masvidal and Sean Reiner on guitar and drums of Cynic, which definitely helped this tech influence type of thing. In my last video of a death album ranking, I said that Death's Human was the first tech death album ever released, which is not true. I did make a mistake on that, and someone pointed out in the comments that it was actually Atheist, and they are indeed true. Piece of Time by Atheist, excluding any demos, is one of the earliest recorded sightings of any techie death metal. And as a matter of fact, Piece of Time by Atheist and the Atheist albums that followed are a lot more convoluted and complex than Human by Death. So in terms of techiness, Atheists definitely have the upper hand, but you know, I still prefer the songwriting and the vocals on Human by far. I like it a lot more than the Atheist albums, but that is not to discredit Atheist at all, because especially Piece of Time is like a fucking banger ass album. But yeah, what can be said about Human? It's Death's best-selling album, first music video, has a fuck ton of bangers on it. It's just a good ass time. Then we got Individual Thought Patterns, which featured Death's second music video and the best lead guitar work in the history of the band because of Andy LaRocque. Andy LaRocque, King Diamond guitars. King Diamond is like one of the most influential artists in metal. I'm not much of a fan. I'm not too into his voice. I think his voice is pretty weird when he does that signature falsetto thingy. When he doesn't do that, you know, I listen to a bit of Come to the Sabbath, and when he doesn't do that falsetto thing, he kind of sounds like somewhat 80s post-punk singers. He reminds me of Jazz Coleman of Killing Joke a little bit, which doesn't sound bad at all, but I don't enjoy the corny falsettos. But nonetheless, they grabbed him from King Diamond. I'm sorry, Come to the Sabbath, I believe it was a Merciful Fate record. I'm pretty sure it was, and it was not the name of the record. It was, yeah, Don't Break the Oath, and Come to the Sabbath was one of the songs off that record. I corrected myself, but yeah. What can I say about this album? This album has a lot of amazing tunes, and a lot of really memorable moments. Destiny has a very, very interesting intro. And there's quite a bit of synth use on this album to add atmosphere. For example, in Out of Touch, at the end of some songs, it's quite good shit. And the last and second music video by Death, being The Philosopher, is a good closing note for this album. It's definitely a very memorable song, The Philosopher. It's like the fucking tapping intro sort of puts you in this mood, and it definitely sticks with you. It's really good shit. Then we got Symbolic. Symbolic is my favorite album of all time. Not just my favorite metal album, it's my favorite fucking album of all time. What can I say about it? Perfection front to fucking back. There is no weak song on this album. None. Every single song has a very specific purpose, and from the starting riff of Symbolic to the ending sort of melancholic acoustic guitar part with those beautifully haunting lead notes on top from Perennial Quest, this album is amazing from start to finish. And an interesting fact about this album is that the vocals are quite a bit deeper than Chuck's live vocal style. If you take a look at Death live videos from 1995, you'll notice that Chuck's live voice is pretty similar to the live voice he had during the Sound of Perseverance era. And I just find that super, super, super interesting. But none the fucking less, this album is fucking brilliant. My favorite song of all time is Crystal Mountain, and it's fucking goatsy, balls out, spread beautiful in here. I fucking love it. And the last album ever released by Death, when Symbolic would have been the last album that was supposed to be released. Another fun fact that I forgot to mention about Symbolic, I clearly remember the engineer Jim Morris from Morris Sound Studios, who worked on Death's production after Scott Burns moved on from Death. He distinctly remembered Chuck saying that he's gonna ruin the album by adding his vocals on it, and it's just such an interesting thing to think about. To see Chuck, one of the greatest metal fucking vocalists of all time, to have this idea that he's ruining his album by adding his fucking vocals. I love the vocals on Symbolic. I think it's Chuck's best vocal work. I don't know how the fuck he sounds like that. It's just great shit. And then the last album, which I think it's second best to Symbolic, it's Sound of fucking Perseverance. This album wasn't supposed to be a Death album. This was supposed to be a Control Denied album. And the roots of Control Denied can be seen in some of the demos on this album. There's a clean singing from Chuck on some of them, not necessarily for him to be the clean singer, it's just kind of like, I think he made those as demos and ideas of what Control Denied was supposed to be, with Tim Aymar, who was a power metal singer. This album fucks. It really, really fucks. Not as hard as Symbolic, because some of the songwriting is a bit meandering and a bit convoluted in the confusing aspect. That is definitely not to shit on it. There's no weak song on this one either, and I quite enjoy the Painkiller cover too. It's a 50-50 thing. Some people don't like Chuck's unhinged highs, but I really, really, really appreciate them. They sound super unique and they sound super distinct. Also, the guitar tone on this album is fucking brilliant. I just love this shit. I just love this shit. There's so many amazing songs. So many amazing songs by The Pain, Story to Tell, Spirit Crusher, Fresh, and The Power It Holds, A Moment of Clarity, Voice of the Soul. It's an endless pile of gold. I just like Symbolic a bit more structure and songwriting wise, and I definitely enjoy Chuck's slightly lower voice here, but the voice on Symbolic is also great. What I should have done in this tier list by now is discuss the vocal work on every album, because it's quite an interesting shift. These first two albums had a very, very similar vocal style where it was that caveman type of pronunciation, where instead of being like this, it was like this. And Chuck sort of kept that twang slightly at the back of his vocals, but the vocals on Spiritual Healing are a lot clearer. And the vocals on Human and Individual Thought Patterns just straight up delve into this sort of like fried vocal, which is really cool. And the fry just becomes more and more and more prominent with his vocals until it becomes this high-pitched fry, which is really fucking good. It's such a unique vocal style and it complements everything about the album so well. Guitar tone, everything. Yeah. Death is my favorite band. Chuck is my favorite musician. Crystal Mountain is my favorite song. Symbolic is my favorite album. What can I say? I'm a dick writer. Thank you for watching this shit. Cause this is like a proper fucking tier list. The shit that I made a year ago.